Hello and welcome to 9 is 10. It's actually happened. What a treat for everyone's ears. My name is Christopher Johnson. I am a terrible, terrible man who is addicted to many shows. But one of them is Doctor Who. I'm very fond of Doctor Who, and I have been ever since I was a small child and heard about it off my father and many other people. Saw the TV movie at a young age, and then this TV show came back in 2005. I was very excited to see it. Now, it's still to this day my favourite series. In case you're wondering why I'm laughing, it's because this is the weirdest thing ever. It was still to this day my favourite series, and Christopher Eccleston, the star of the show upon its return, is still my Doctor. He is my Doctor. I love them all, but Chris is mine. But it's not just me rambling on about what I like about Doctor Who. I'm joined this week to celebrate the 10th anniversary of Rose, Mr. Guy Lambert.
Hello.
Hello, Guy.
Sorry, I was laughing. It was just, I'm just, it's very odd because Chris is a established televisual performer, and
So I don't know why that's funny.
he, well, he was anyway. But I'm really nervous because I'm a producer, and I'm usually in the ear, not literally, of people like you telling you what to do or say. And I'm never on camera or recorded or anything, so I'm genuinely terrified. And the laughing I was doing was just like a man kind of having a breakdown.
Oh gosh,
due to nerves. But we have our tea.
we do. We have our tea.
We have a cup of tea. We have a Rolo egg.
Yes.
And other brands are available.
Yeah, there might also be some booze in the vicinity, but that is not as encouraging you to drink booze. We want you to drink in Doctor Who. Now,
Yes.
for those of you who've already pressed play on Rose, looking at the title of this as a
crazy
commentary,
fools.
stop that. Stop it. Take it back. What I need you all to do while we're having a chat now is dead simple. If you've not got it lined up already, get your DVD on. Start the episode, but hit pause. Make sure that time code is 000000. If you've got it on Netflix, get it streaming, but don't hit play just yet. If you've got it on your iTunes, or if you're watching it on VHS, or if you're reading the Target novelisation, however it is.
If you're reading the Target novelisation, then I don't think our commentary is ever going to be that long.
No, ever. But
But can I just, on a serious note,
Yes.
if you've got iTunes or Netflix, don't they have the BBC logo at the beginning, so you kind of skip that?
do make sure that you are on the blackout screen just before the episode kicks in. And we will tell you when to hit play. But first, a couple of questions. Guy,
Yes.
as you mentioned, you are a television producer of television.
Yes.
You have worked on many a project. I know you from my work at CBBC,
Yes.
where you sort of... Essentially, as far as I'm concerned, you kind of captained Ed and Out show and that era of The Office. Like, you were a very big part of why that worked, which was also around the same time of Doctor Who coming back and things like the Sarah Jane Adventures coming into existence and Blue Peter doing times of Doctor Who again. Skipping the TV side for just a moment, going back a bit. How did you find out about the series returning? Were you reading about it in the news? Did you?
Well,
hear about
it was very strange because I worked at the BBC from 2003 to 2010, and you started in 2010.
I did,
and
back when I
coincidentally left shortly afterwards. But I found out it was really strange because I've been trying to get in the BBC for years.
with a crowbar.
I started in September 2003, which to me was all I was like. It was like it's the beginning of me being a producer at the BBC. Literally, I think someone out there who'll probably put this on YouTube and say what date it was, but it was about 2 or 3 weeks later they announced it was coming back. There was a big press release. The Russell T Davies was doing it and everything. Not the microphone.
That's right.
Russell T Davies was doing
Stars
it.
you mean to go on?
And it was like a big deal, and it was weird because everyone I knew was like, "Oh my god, are you working on Doctor Who? Is that why you're there?" Because everyone knew I was a big Doctor Who fan, and so everyone thought I was going to work on Doctor Who. So for like about an hour, it was kind of a fun thing to pretend to sort of, when people kind of don't really deny it, because it was fun for people for me to think that was the case. But
Meanwhile,
no.
all the guys at the web team who are working on Scream of the Shalka.
Yes.
Who's this guy who might know something? Bless him.
Yes.
Because, well, let's go a bit further back as well, provide a bit of context, because some of the people listening right now may have always had Doctor Who in their life simply because they were watching it from, like, for example, you at home now, you might be 14 listening to this, and you've had Doctor Who in your life since you were 4. As far as you're concerned, it's never not been here. But for the rest of us, there was once a dark time.
Oh.
Now, you became
when the tea went cold.
Yeah, well, the tea definitely went cold. Now you became a fan of it. Sort of, Davison's your doctor, isn't he? So is that kind of your? That's your.
When I was growing up, it was evenings were either Cub Scouts or Doctor Who.
Some would say they're one and the same.
Yes,
because naturally Cub Scouts, like you save the universe.
I don't think they're around anymore. Those people, but but they.
What a weird thought.
Anyway, so yes, I got it. I was into it. But the thing is, when you're a kid, it's not like it probably felt like this to people who were about 5, 6, 7 when Doctor Who came on. It's not like you go, "Oh, I'm now going to be a fan of this." It's just a show that was on. Like it was banned in my house. It was banned at one point because I was scared of it, and I worked out the point at where it was banned that I was scared of it was. Roughly around the time of the Nightmare of Eden.
Oh god!
So I was obviously like a very wimpy child who was terrified of mandrels.
Hey, who isn't terrified of mandrels aside from everyone else?
Mandrels and mandrels. But so I just loved it. It was just a show that I loved. And the thing is, then during the Davison era, it had not yet become a show that people thought was rubbish. It was a show that you'd go to school and say, I watched Doctor Who, and they'd be like, yeah, sure. And I played Doctor Who in the playground. And I was
just on the way here. Like,
yes, I do it now.
We just ran by an empty schoolyard and played Doctor Who.
I remember being in the playground and a tree was the console. I don't know. That's a child's imagination, somehow making a tree.
That's kind of brilliant. That makes sense.
And we had Nissa and Tegan, and my friend was Adric, and we had to kill him off, obviously. But not many. Yeah. Anyway. So I just became I was just a fan, but then I became a fan. I think around about the late. I was telling you earlier about I used to be in a Doctor Who club, and
wasn't the Cub Scouts, just to be confused.
No,
not to be confused with.
I was very much. That's when I became a fan in this first McCoy era. But I became one of those fans who instantly decided it wasn't as good as it used to be, despite the fact I'd only ever seen a VHS of Pyramids of Mars,
which fits remarkably well with Rose, because there was a bit of a weird semi-backlash, wasn't there, from fans of what is now dubbed as the classic era, even though technically it's all Who, but
I wasn't aware of it, because don't forget, this is, when we one of the reasons I wanted to do Rose is because I think it's a really fascinating thing, because it's so easy now. I mean, we're in a room. I don't know if Chris has ever put a picture up on Tumblr or anything of one of his rooms in his house, which is absolutely jam packed full of stuff. I mean, it's literally there are so many Daleks and Cybermen toys, and it's.
I have alarms and locks and contents insurance, and nobody dare come anywhere near it.
Yeah, but in 2005. What was interesting was because there was no Twitter, there was sort of Facebook, I think.
MySpace was still kind of knocking about at this point, yeah.
But there was no
Bebo, if you must.
Now I wasn't the kind of fan that would go online, and I don't think there was that much there. I don't know, but there was like it was in '96 when the TV movie happened. To me, there was hardly anyone else to talk to about it, and it was more a case of, oh my god, it's coming back. And I think in '96 when it came back, and it was good and in some ways not good, because it then never came back again after that. We were so happy that it just came. I don't know, I just kind of got the feeling that people were just like, well, thank god it's there. And we've been disappointed / delighted once.
Yeah.
So in 2005 it was like, look, just put something on and we're happy.
Just give us something.
I could be wrong, and loads of other people say no, I thought it was rubbish and all the rest of it. But I think in 2005 there were none of these figures. There was none of this stuff. It was, there was no Matt Smith, no Day of the Doctor, not even Martha Jones or the Cybermen or anything. It was nothing. There was just total blank page for it, and we didn't know whether it was going to refer to the old series. We didn't know whether. I mean, we were conscious that because Russell T Davies was a fan, that it wasn't going to be like a reboot in the sense of he was going to be the first Doctor. But you just didn't know. It was very exciting.
You didn't know how much of the original run was going to sort of creep into the new version.
Yeah,
and that's something that obviously we'll touch on a lot as the episodes go by. Is that there isn't that much callback. There is enough
No.
to sort of establish, yes, this is the same world, and yes,
Yeah.
the Time Lords did exist, but some things happened. Which, again, very bold storytelling choice, which we can get to a bit more toward the Nestine scene in this episode. We can
And there's
talk more
another
about
scene as well, actually, which I'll refer to fans and stuff.
that. I can see you making like a mental map.
I sort of thought, yeah,
putting
it reminded me
attack in the Time
But I
Lord.
think what's really important is, like, we've, up to this point, we earlier watched the documentary that went out at about 5:30 or something. I think it was 5:30.
Doctor
on the
Who,
day.
Doctor Who, the
And
new
the New
dimension.
Dimension, which is on YouTube, because I don't think it was ever released on DVD or anything.
I
which,
don't believe it's on
as
any
we
collection.
noticed, was narrated by David Tennant.
Which is really spooky because, as far as I'm aware, it was before he was cast as the 10th Doctor and before he shot the regeneration scene, which
Yeah.
I think was shot during the first wave of episodes going out. They were wrapping up the final block. Which is brilliant because if he did know by that point and Russell had cast David by that point, that is a genius note of foreshadowing, because there he is talking about
I
the
mean,
new
Russell
series.
must have known.
I think he had an
Russell
idea from
would have
Casanova.
known. Yes.
I think when they were making Casanova, I'm sure he said it in an interview that he was like, right, that's the guy who, if the next one's coming along, I need to talk to David and ask if he wants to do it,
Yeah.
because he's so passionate about it and stuff.
Do you know what? Go on, sorry.
That's all right. Which is why it's different with Chris, because Chris wasn't a big Doctor Who fan. He does recall in interviews that he watched John Pertwee and whatnot, and and Patrick Troughton. And in fact, I think he says in the first interview he did with BBC News, the first Doctor he was aware of was William Hartnell. He either watched Unearthly Child go out, or he started watching it around that time as a small kid. And it was kind of, it was something he was interested in, but it was only the John Pertwee stuff he noticed when he was wanting to become an actor. But it's not, unlike David and Peter Capaldi later, he's not an actor who, or even Peter Davison, he's not an actor who was influenced by Doctor Who into being an actor.
And I think very consciously, I remember him saying that he was very conscious to create a Doctor that wasn't... I can't remember exactly, I'm not going to put words in the man's mouth, but he said
Because that
something...
would be very painful.
Yes.
Depending on what material you use.
I mean, he said something like, he used to see Doctor Who and be aware of it, and think it wasn't for him. I can't remember the exact wording, but it was something like, he said he was very kind of upper class, intellectual, English, Southern character, and he felt he couldn't relate to that. And that, I think, was really interesting when he said that informed his choice this time of how he was going to play it. And when we look at the thing is, it's interesting with Chris Eccleston or the Ninth Doctor, because it is so different.
Or the 10th Doctor, if you want to get really
Or the
complex.
10th. Let's not go there.
Let's not do that.
I mean, again, we know this was before the War Doctor, any of that. So as far as we were concerned,
Yeah, in fact, I'm going to get that out of the way now, guys. If you're going to be following the series, if there are any comments on the YouTube or the SoundCloud in relation to, but technically it's the 10th Doctor,
yeah, don't
shut
go
up.
there. Because also, this isn't about what we know now.
Yes.
This is about going back and remembering what we knew then.
Yeah.
And what we knew then,
Precisely Monday.
although I don't think we knew that in this episode.
Absolutely.
Because I think it's the next one we find out about the Time
sure.
War. Is that... like Jeremy Paxman from there.
Indeed.
Yes. We didn't know any... I don't think we knew about the Time War at this point at all.
No, there is
in terms of, we never knew about it in terms of
the first mention of it, I believe,
publicity.
is in this episode when they mention that the Nestines, like food planets or whatever, like
Yes.
it were lost in a
war.
war.
Oh, and he
And
says something about...
There's
we'll get to
reference
that,
when he's
won't we?
talking to... Yeah, when we get to that, we'll talk about it more. But when he's talking to the Nestine, there's a reference to, like, I'm sorry, like, I tried to save them. So you get a sense of what we later learn was either possibly the actions of the War Doctor or maybe the 8th Doctor keeping
this
away
is it.
from
At
the
this
war
point-
but trying to help out.
At this point in our when this show came back, this is now we are talking like we're there on we're
Yeah.
watching Strictly Dance Fever, I think was the show called, with Graham Norton. We're sat there going, when will this bloody show end? I want to watch Doctor Who. And
No offence to Craig
and in
Norton
our
and co,
mind- no
but
offence to that,
was what
no.
we were all thinking.
Good luck with the one series. And you're sat there with 10 minutes or whatever to go, and all you know about Doctor Who is Doctors 1 to 8. And you're sat there going, I don't know what the title sequence looks like. I think we knew what the logo looks like. I don't know what the music's going to be like. I don't know what it's going to look like. I don't know if they're going to refer to the 8th Doctor. There might be a regeneration for all I know. We just knew nothing. well, not literally nothing, but we didn't know things like that. All we knew was the Eighth Doctor had somehow probably done the Time War, possibly, maybe he had. It was so
also,
much we don't know.
It was left open for you to interpret as the series went on.
Or Stephen Moffat to retcon.
Yes, but which, again, I think for the 50th anniversary, and this is where a lot of people are curious as about the 10th anniversary, shouldn't there be a special for the... Not really, but it's worth, of course, acknowledging that there are 10 years of a new successful era for the show. And that's kind of what this is all about. But it's not the only thing celebrating the 10 years. You are taking part in 2 other events as well, aren't you?
I know, I literally have no life / job.
The first one is a Twitter hashtag. It's a live tweet along with the episodes
with
every Saturday night.
Tiny man-child Lewis Christian, who on Twitter, who I do not necessarily endorse the views of Lewis Christian, but I do like him. We have a good laugh, and we are doing hashtag Fantastic S1 for Series 1.
Yeah, not Fantastic S1 for Series 1, just Fantastic S1.
Fantastic S1. And we're doing the intention, although whether we actually last, I don't know. But the intention means
this means that you lot listening now have to spur them on to make this happen. Every Saturday you'll go.
Every Saturday, me and Lewis, whose views I may or may not endorse, are going to live tweet every Saturday at 7. We're going to live tweet Series 1. So we're going to start with Rose. We're not doing Rose on Thursday today.
You're doing it the Saturday.
We're doing the Saturday because Saturday's Doctor Who Day.
Yeah.
So we're going to do it every Saturday. Bearing in mind that there might be a few days where we're ill, or we can't be bothered, or we've just lost interest, or we just, we might go...
You get replaced by Auton replicants, or...
We might just say, you know what, we got halfway through and everyone's lost interest, so let's just do it a Sunday where we do the whole of it. Or something. Anyway, Fantastic S1 is the hashtag. And me and Lewis will see you on the Saturday, and we'll do that, and it'll be fun at 7.
But not just that, you've prepared a little a little audio treat.
Yeah.
As sort of just a big celebration of the show in general, but certainly of its comeback. We won't say too much about this, because we're going to talk about it another time, but do let people know what it is and where to find it.
So this is another one involving the hashtag. So this is hashtag 2ish Doctors. Now, this is all about... Now, you've already heard it.
I've been given a preview, which I claimed was for research for this, so I knew what I was talking about, but really I just wanted to get a free preview before it goes out online and everybody else hears it.
I always said I would never do fan fiction. I kind of... Not because I don't have any kind of views on it, whether it's all good or not. But
you could fall into a well of it, really.
Thing is, I'm because I work in TV, and not even if I didn't work in TV. Point is, I like creating original new stuff, new characters. But Christopher Thompson does an amazing Patrick Troughton. If you go on YouTube and look up The Glimpse, he does Patrick Troughton voice, which is astonishingly good. And Tom Rhys-Kay, who I've known for quite a while, he does an amazing 11th Doctor. So they were talking about
frighteningly can look like him as well, which
he does look a lot like him. Yes, he does look a lot like
mannerisms and everything.
And he does the whole hand thing. It's very weird, and it's particularly when you're shopping with him, it's very odd.
I just want to get some milk. Ah, yes. Now.
Yes, he does it right, Clara, and all that. I can't do the voice, you can tell. But anyway, these two guys are great, and they're both good actors, and they act and they do stuff, and it's great. And so I just thought that sounds fun. I want to get involved. So what me and Tom wrote a script, and Chris put bits of stuff in it, and we did this audio play. It's about 9 minutes, I think, and it's great. It's probably the best fan fiction there's ever been, Chris.
I think we can... Nobody comment in response to
nobody
that.
Comment on that
open
one.
A can of worms.
I'm joking. But look, the thing is about it is we did it because we wanted to do something fun for the 10th. We were aware that at this point there might be stuff, but we're very conscious that probably there isn't a lot of other stuff happening. So we just thought we'll do the multi-Doctor thing, because the multi-Doctor thing is traditional of an anniversary. And what's nice about it is
the
like
10th anniversary, didn't it? 3 Doctors kicked off there.
Yeah, and what I said to you
when
we were talking about Time Crash, what was great about Time Crash is you had Tennant with his favourite Doctor, Davison, and what was very conveniently brilliant about this is you have Matt Smith's Doctor, excuse me, with Matt Smith's favourite Doctor, Troughton, and it it warms your cockles.
It
doesn't
really
it?
does.
It's very,
It
I mean,
really does.
I know I'm involved and I produced, directed, or whatever I did, but
I pressed the buttons and made the stuff happen.
You know, even directing it was joyous. It was like it was just great.
The best way to describe it is it is. It's like this beautiful merger. If you've ever had a love for both of the series, because there are unfortunately people who enjoy one and don't like the other, but
Yeah.
Even if that is the case, this will remind you why the other informs the other one so much, and why the whole thing is just one beautiful whole. It's not two separate eras; it is the same show. But there's also something of this of Two-ish Doctors that alludes to the two eras and what they mean to each other, as well as obviously the two versions of the character. The performances of they're
great,
on.
aren't they? They're so good.
The guys are spot on, and also if you guys like to imagine like the audio stuff or the fan stuff that's really bloody good is canonical, these guys have done a superb job at finding the perfect moment for each of them for it to work. I don't want to say much more, because to do that would be to ruin it really, but the Two-ish Doctors, please do check it out. It's a nugget of Who joy.
And can I say one thing about it?
No. Yeah, of course you can.
Because what I want people to do is when they listen to it, I want them to think, you know what, these guys just did that for not a laugh. We did it because we wanted to do something for people to go, you know what, let's have a good time on the anniversary. Let's actually celebrate it somehow. We didn't set out to make like a movie or to do some epic thing that we felt was going to be this big. You know, we just set out to do something really lovely, and I want people to listen to it and appreciate it on that level. And I don't want people to think we're not trying to be Big Finish. You know, we're not ambition to be, oh, we're going to take on Big Finish and do his rival. But we just did it because it was nice and fun and good.
It is this pocket of just brilliance, and it is there. And if you don't listen to it, you're doing yourself a disservice.
And if people like it, people won't like it. But at least we did something.
Yeah, but I don't care about the people that don't like it.
I do.
Boo them.
But I will systematically delete their comments on YouTube.
You heard it here first, folks. Now, brace yourselves. Get your pause. Get your pause buttons ready. One last quick question: where were you on the broadcast of Rose?
Well, you see, obviously, I said to you, I was working at CBBC. Can I just say as well that? Oh no, I'll talk about that after this because we'll get on with it. But I was.
There's a lot to talk. There is a lot to discuss in this.
At this point in my life, I was living in Soho, and
having a grand old time.
Oh, hey, good times. And I was in my flat on my own, and I insisted nobody was going to watch it with me. I had several people I knew, including a very good friend of mine, who was like, "Oh, can I watch?" No, I'm going to watch it on my own. I don't want anyone breathing in the same space that I am in. Turn your phone off. Everything's off. You just go, right, I've been waiting 9 years for this. Not a soul. And you know when you have that nerves of, oh my God, what if there's a power cut? Because, of course, this was before iPlayer or any of that stuff.
Yeah, I believe it was, yeah.
So if you missed it, you had to wait till it was on BBC Three the next day, which doesn't sound terrible. But you know what I mean? You were like, oh God, what if there's a power cut?
You couldn't come home from work and recap it. Like, if you missed it, you were waiting for the next day in the hopes you could catch the repeat. Or, you'd recorded it on your video player or your DVDR.
I did.
DVDRs were sneaking in at that point.
I was recording this. I was still on VHS at this point. I was recording on VHS.
Me too. Me too.
And my God, bless this era. Bless this moment of wonder
and joy
and excitement, the trip of a lifetime.
That trailer, that bloody trailer,
and we were
bloody
excited.
Yeah, I was sat in a caravan in Newquay on holiday with my dad, and
that sounds depressing.
It go out. No, well, it's Newquay.
I think there's something about not Newquay. It's the caravan sounds depressing.
Well, for 45 minutes that evening, Guy, it was a journey through time and space. It was a trip of a lifetime.
Did you want to come with him?
I did want to come with him on a journey of a lifetime. And it's time for us all now to journey through time and space to the world of the mighty Eccleston.
I'm sort of nervous. I haven't seen this for quite a while.
I probably watch this episode about twice a year.
And
because
watch
it's
out.
on my iPod, so if I'm making a long commute and I want to pick one that I know well enough that I don't mind having to stop it early or what have you, I will always pick Rose.
And I think this is the most perfect first episode of any TV show ever. And it's not even the first episode of Doctor Who ever.
It's like the
But it
175th.
is literally the best beginning of a show. Should we just get on with it, Chris?
Let's ruddy do it.
And I'm going to start with a negative comment. Ooh.
Oh, okay.
Here we go.
Ladies and gents, time code 000000. Press play now. We are journeying into the world of Rose. Oh, look at that. Hello.
The only episode to open without a pre-titles. Now, here's my negative. The only negative, really, I'm going to say probably, possibly. So I'd been waiting for this for 9 years, and I watched this and was like, oh, is that it? Is that the title sequence? Really? Where's the face? Where's the Starfield? You know, you had such expectation. Where's this?
To be fair,
moany old Doctor Who fan. Oh,
McCoy's-
God, the logo isn't right. It doesn't look right in the tunnel. It doesn't work. Oh, God.
McCoy's era had ramped up the amount of things.
Oh,
to
God,
expect
look at
from
the
title
font,
sequence.
Chris. What is the font? That was my thought, was, oh, my God, this just doesn't look right. And then
This happened.
I shut up. My brain went, no, this is... Look at this. You'd never seen... Not even in the TV movie had something looked as good as this.
This is such a gorgeous establishing shot. Oh,
and there's
there
that
we
little
are.
centre.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Now, this sequence is why Russell Davies is one of my favourite... If actually my favourite writer ever. Because when you... The thing you've got to remember about this is, you know, as we were saying, Doctor Who had not been properly on for 16 years, apart from the TV movie. And Matt, go and look at Time Flight. Think about the way Time Flight is shot, the studio-ness of it, the cheapness, the video-ness of it. And then there's this. Somehow Russell T Davies saw all that stuff and imagined an opening this exciting.
Yeah.
Which is...
Taking us into a world we know very well as well. Like, we're not starting on an alien plane. We're
Yes,
not,
do you know what? That's true. It's like...
we're not starting with the Daleks had put the Master on trial for his crimes.
And also,
all
if
this
you
stuff,
were a Doctor Who fan and someone had said, can you write the opening episode of the new series, I bet 99% of us would have started with a Dalek ship over Earth. You know, we have found the Doctor. It would have started with... Or an alien planet with a Doctor coming out of the TARDIS falling over, where have you brought me now, old girl? We would have come up with every cliche in the book. And Russell T Davies started it on Earth. Like this, like it's like a great directed version of EastEnders.
Oh yeah, we're 2.5 minutes in, and we have just been following a teenage girl through her daily routine.
This is so different. I haven't seen this for a while, and yeah, you can, as you say, you compare it to. It was on the planet Skara that my master trial went on trial.
There's a bloke who sort of looks like the silhouette of the Master did a thing.
And already you're like, I don't know what this is.
Yeah.
Whereas this is, if you were a kid and you'd never seen Doctor Who and you saw this, you'd think, oh, this is like Buffy.
Now that was the biggest thing that I noticed at that point. I was a huge fan and still am, and I will say it, my favourite TV show ever is Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Not ever though, Chris.
Well, yes, for a weird reason, because
Actually, do you know what?
I've got it from beginning to end, and I can
Yeah.
appreciate it for what it is. But the reason
Yes,
why
I see
Doctor
what you're
Who
saying.
is my very close second favourite is because there is more to discover. And it's not ending yet. There's more to come, and there is always more to read and look back on that I've missed, and that's glorious. And that is what I noticed with this, though. Russell clearly had been watching the American.
Yeah, well, he
45-minute
said
dramas,
he was a fan of Buffy, I think.
In fact, I had the script books for some of the Buffy stuff that they released,
Yeah.
and then I bought the shooting scripts book for series 1 of this, and the structure is very similar, and that's a good thing. Definitely a good thing, because it is containing not necessarily a Monster of the Week plot, but like.
Can I just say this is about the point Graham Norton talked.
It's roughly now where all of a sudden we heard like, oh, it's very eerie. So I remember watching it back in the day.
Is the... I mean, I don't know what those guys went through watching it, but as someone who works in telly, and I'm sure you feel the same, when you make something, that you sit and watch it... I was sitting watching this nervous because I was scared it was not going to work or be not good, or... And that must have been devastating to have Graham Norton. Anyway, The Graham Norton thing's irrelevant. We've mentioned it. It's done. We've ticked that box.
I don't want to. I'm just going to get the sort of the inappropriate thought out of the way. I have such a crush on Series 1 Rose.
Yeah, we talked about that earlier, didn't we?
It's so inappropriate. If you read Doctor Who magazine,
it's not inappropriate. It's totally right and appropriate.
Well, if you read Doctor Who magazine, I did the Time Team feature with Emma and Michael and Will, and if you read any of the Series 1 stuff, I'm just swooning over Rose continuously. I absolutely adore her. But also, I have such a huge attachment to the Autons. The first story, post the TV movie, I remember watching was Spearhead from Space on a UK Gold repeat. And the Autons terrify me.
I don't think there's a story that is as scary as Spearhead from Space.
Oh, it's
I think it's one of the most, if not the most scary.
Hang on, can we just...
I'm
sorry, I know the whole point of a commentary is to provide commentary, but this moment is such a brilliant introduction to the character of the Doctor. Yeah.
And it's amazing, isn't it? It's like 3 minutes in or whatever we're in and we haven't seen him.
Here he comes. Oh, there it is.
Perfect first line.
Shows up out of seemingly nowhere, because we know, like, people who watch it, we know that's the Doctor. Dummy boobies. We know that, he's been snooping around. He's already been investigating this. He's waiting for the moment it all comes... You know what I mean? Like, it's...
But if you're a kid and you don't know Doctor Who, or just an adult who doesn't know it, whatever, you've no idea who this person is. You're like, is he a mate of hers? Does he work there? What's the deal? Who is this person? Then, like, this happens, and you're like, it's absolutely fascinating. It's like you are hooked into who the hell is this character.
But also, you've not got a flash of Victoriana or big bright colours or anything, question marks, dashing through. This just looks like it could have been a bloke who works upstairs on his way out, or like a guy from the street who's snuck in.
Which is both, I think, as an old fan, not that old, but an old classic fan.
I will in these commentaries I will allow the use of the terms classic and new Who.
I'm not a fan
just
of
to make it easy
but
to
what
distinguish
I'm saying
the
is
eras.
a fan of 20th century Who, as someone called it the other day, which I think is much better.
Yeah.
I both loved and did not love his costume because it was so different. But I think what sold it. Sorry, I'm sort of watching it because it's so
it's
good.
all right.
What sold it is
solid.
that you realise that actually, do you know what? When he's being the Doctor, the costume is irrelevant to a large degree because it's about the character, and that's what I quite like about the costume in a way. It frees him up of that he has to be the character himself. The costume cannot be his character. Whereas with Sylvester McCoy or something like that, you feel like the costume is very much, oh, look at me, I'm dressed like an eccentric.
Yeah.
I therefore wouldn't necessarily have to act that way.
Well, it's like,
Did that make sense?
I know what you mean. It's like the challenge is different. Like, for example, Colin Baker and Sylvester McCoy, and to an extent Paul McGann, kind of had the challenge of having to prove...
I was going to point out the first appearance of a very important object in this world.
Oh, gosh. That effect is aged very well.
And sort of also not that well.
Yeah, like it's sort of...
look at
there
it.
it is. Hello.
And the music. Murray Gold, we have to mention Murray Gold at this point.
We do, yes.
The man's a genius and brilliant and amazing, and I know that a few people are a bit tired of him now because he's been around for quite a while, but it's
because he's very good at what he does.
He's on it every time, and a lot of people say, "Oh, there's too much music." It's not. That's not his fault. That's the choice of a director or producer or whoever. But I don't think there's a difference between too much music and not good music, and I would much rather have too much Murray Gold than anything we had in the 80s, pretty much. Apart from the exciting theme, K9 to the Rescue.
Well, that's the greatest piece of music ever.
And Nissa's theme's pretty good.
Nissa's theme is quite good.
Yeah, and a little shout for Thomas Rhys K. Adrick's theme is obviously one of the favourites.
Now, again, the soap opera. This is something people... I've just noticed the hookah on the shelf. The hookah.
What's a hookah?
On the shelf above the sofa. Wait till it cuts back to the white.
What's a hookah?
Sort of the pipe for smoking.
To remember that character.
Tobacco. Imagine a bong that's perfectly legal and you've got a hookah.
I don't know what any of those words mean.
That's because you're an uncultured swine.
No, it's because I'm a law-abiding citizen. But as well, can we just quickly mention, and I know it's not a big deal, but I think it's important to mention Noel Clarke, because, and I don't want to go on about, race or anything like that, but I remember when I was watching Sylvester McCoy when I was a kid, and it was like, and you really noticed there was a black person in it, like in the Greatest Show and in Happiness Patrol. It's like, oh my god, there's a black man in it. And what's so great about this is Noel is there because he's a brilliant actor. It doesn't feel like it's forced, but it also, because it's there, it feels modern. Do you know what I mean? It's an interesting choice.
There doesn't seem to, and this is sort of, this is, I think, representative of all of Russell T Davies's sort of approach to drama and storytelling. Anyway, it doesn't feel like they're trying to be diverse be diverse. He's writing characters and casting actors who are perfect.
But I also think there is an acknowledgement that we do want to be diverse. I think this is quite. We don't want to go into this issue, but
but Britain is a lot more multicultural than say sort of 50 years ago. It's.
I think it was a very conscious decision to have that, but
it didn't dictate who got the part and everything.
And interesting, it didn't dictate the character. The character isn't about being non-white.
The character is Rose's boyfriend.
Yeah.
Who grows
a coward
over the story.
Becomes a hero. Yeah, zero to hero.
Again, like, this is sort of looking to the future a bit for series 2, but like, I really like Mickey's arc because he doesn't really have one at first, but then later you realise, oh no, he does, because in this Living two-parter, he's presented in a pretty horrific circumstance. He's been accused of murder or kidnap, and has had to deal with that.
Yes, I'd forgotten that,
which is pretty serious. And then by the time Boomtown comes around, like, he's trying to move on with his life, but he can't because he still loves Rose. And you feel kind of bad for him because all of a sudden, which I'll obviously
you'll get on to
Boomtown.
Yeah.
But even so, this is a lovely moment.
Oh, and with the beautiful Camille, whose surname I can't pronounce.
Camille Kaduri.
Thank you. I'm not good with things like words. She's amazing. I mean,
there is.
This is, and as well, we don't want to go into big discussions about sex or race or any of those kind of heavy things because it's not appropriate, but that's one of the sort of almost first sexual moments in Doctor Who ever.
Yeah,
because the kiss between Grace and...
even the kiss with Grace isn't
it's not a sexual thing.
Yeah.
That's like the first sense of adult sex coming into Doctor Who, and it's really well handled because it's real. Now here we go. Here's the moment that is now different. We look at that so differently now, don't we? We think of the War Doctor, and we know it wasn't McGann. At this point, it was a mystery. What an amazing thing to do to a character who had been around for how long was it? What was 1963?
26 years he'd been around, and then he popped back for another year.
42 years.
Yeah.
42-year-old character. And Russell finds a new heart for him in terms of character.
Very good.
Two new hearts. It's amazing. I think Russell T Davies is a genius. And I don't care and I think anyone who's critical of Russell T Davies needs to shut up. And it doesn't matter if you don't like Love and Monsters or any of that sort of stuff. You have no right to be rude about that man, because without that man, this show, you would not be here today.
Yeah. No, exactly. We wouldn't be celebrating a 10th anniversary if it were not for him.
No.
And of course, like, it was, a lot of the show's return was down to wonderful coincidence and the people who genuinely loved it.
Let's acknowledge a few of that. Julie Gardner,
Lorraine
Heggessy,
Jane Tranter, very key in it happening,
and
as well.
often not mentioned. Those, do you remember that they were talking about how they'd commissioned a survey or whatever, saying are people bothered about Doctor Who coming back, and it was like 82% of people said they couldn't care less.
So
and they
kept
hid
it quiet. Yeah.
Now that is something so brave. If you don't work in TV, that's an unbelievably the bravest thing in the world to do in television is to have faith in something and force it to happen. It is you know what it's like when you're presenting. If you've got an idea, it can be a battle.
Yeah.
And it's astonishing how many things get through that are really good because people believed in it.
Yes, they did. That's the stuff that lasts. That's the stuff that makes an impact. I find the things.
Mal Young as well, we should mention.
Oh yes, yeah, yeah, and Mal Young.
yeah. Only because I was aware that we had mentioned him.
Now this is beautiful because you know that he's finding it enjoyable to talk to somebody who's obviously witnessed some of the stuff, but he's still kind of like, okay, right, off you go. I'll let me do my thing now, please. Which later on, again, you figure out later on, and especially as well with the costume, you realise everything he's doing is, as Blomfell Foch Passemer de Slovene describes in Boomtown, because of his magpie mind. Like, he is looking for, ooh, shiny thing, ooh, nice, ooh, like something interesting, to distract himself from what's behind him. He's trying to move on, which you do get in this series too when you find out about the time while you realise he keeps moving because he can't look back.
But what's interesting as well, and I didn't pick up on this at the time because I think looking at it from this perspective, I've been there. I went and nearly filmed a show there.
Yeah.
Called Gwyn and the Dragon. Look it up.
Yes. Very
with
good.
Louise James.
Doctor Who connection. Uh-huh.
Yes. I might drop that in later. So, but what's interesting is looking back, he's doing, psychologically, he's doing what people who have been hurt by people do. They are nervous of being attached to people, and this is one of those moments where he's sort of reminding himself how much he loves being. Look at Rose is bringing it out of him, but looking back, and Russell knew writing it that he was scared of becoming attached to someone and losing them and all those things. It's amazing. It's amazing writing.
It's wonderfully laid, and it's something I'll again discuss as we go on.
This is a beautiful shot. Look at that beautiful shot.
This speech and everything, and the top of that TARDIS isn't a focus. It's just there in the background.
Yeah, it's like she hasn't even noticed it.
Which again, Boomtown, like another great episode, but they sort of reference it. They said to Mickey, like, if you put a blue box slap bang in the middle of somewhere, what do people do? They walk past it, and it's very true. And that's kind of him as well at the moment. That's why the costume is the way it is. That's why his attitude is the way it is. He doesn't want to be noticed. He's happy. He's happy being himself. But the story arc of the series, and this is something I'll tell you all to watch out for as we go along. Count the amount of times the Ninth Doctor saves the day, and then add it up alongside the amount of times someone else saves the day, or someone else saves the day because of his encouragement or like his influence.
Do you know what I had? Oh, sorry, Karen.
No. It's something for you all to think about going forward.
Well, I've already had a discussion with someone about that kind of thing, and again, it's every time you watch this, you have to think, because it's very easy with television and writing to look at it and go, "Oh, that was obvious. That was an obvious thing to write," but it's not. And as I said, if you say, Matt, go and write your own version of Rose, and it would be all about aliens. Most people, mine, anyone, it would be about aliens, and you wouldn't think about those subtleties that you've just said. You wouldn't think about the Doctor influencing people. It would be, in most cases, people would write tropes, as you said earlier. That I like that word.
I love the word tropes.
Earlier, as in earlier today, rather than earlier this.
I was going to say,
we haven't edited
sure the conversation was over.
But you know what I mean? There's a kind of. I'm a big Russell T Davies fan. We both love Cucumber and thought it was amazing. And what I love about his writing, and this is absolutely quintessentially him, is it's so alive. That sounds so kind of pretentious, but you know what I mean? It's like these people are living and it's happening and it's energy.
We've not landed in a sci-fi story.
Yeah.
We've landed in a story.
But also the people are active and stuff's happening and there's no dwelling, there's no flaccidity. Is that the right word? To it. It's just alive. I can't describe it very well, as I've clearly just demonstrated.
Well, let me momentarily distract from your genuinely, complex and wonderfully put analysis to point out searchwise.net.
Look at that computer.
I do love that sort of thing of the mid 2000s where everyone was unsure about using actual search engines and stuff for copyright reasons.
Still happens now. I saw it in a drama the other day.
Just on occasion. Now this is unique. This is Who is Doctor Who, isn't it?
Yeah. This is very weird. And what's, again, talking about things that are not obvious.
Yeah.
This is like the X-Files investigate. It's like the Doctor. Now I know a lot of people are very critical of this, particularly lately with Clara. That the Doctor isn't the lead character. It's almost like it is the Rose show. I mean, the episode is named after her. It's the Rose. It's her show in a way. Yeah,
actually, I've realised something. The way that guy is watching Mickey and walking away, Auton, I'm calling it.
Oh
it's
my
been
god!
Put there on purpose.
Yeah, but
why else
quite
would he have
quite
that
a well-behaved Auton because he put the bin out. I think that kid's the Auton.
Do you really?
Look at him. God, I think that kid's like what, 24 now. Same age as you. You were about that age, weren't you?
No, I was 14 when this went out.
What? How old is he? Probably 13 or something.
Probably about 10, to be honest.
Shush.
Oh, Mark Benton. Love him.
Mark Benton.
And again, sort of, there's a drinking game to be had in ticking off people who were from Russell's previous stuff.
Yes.
Mark Benton, of course, played a very unfortunate gentleman in The Second Coming.
Yes, and we can't tell you more than that without spoiling it.
I also quite like that. Someone's come to talk to me about the Doctor, she's a she, like sort of poking fun at the stereotype of no girls are into this show. It's just sort of that daft blokes like and
he
anoraks.
foreshadows, which I've never thought about before. He foreshadows the Peter Kay character kind of world, doesn't he?
Yeah, the idea that there are people who are following it.
That
Ursula
are based
and
on
stuff in Love and Monsters is also like Clive.
are fans. They're fans of the Doctor. I never thought about that before. Because this is something we were talking about. Alan Partridge the other day. He reminds me, he reminds me of someone that would have the face of Chris Eccleston tattooed on his stomach.
But what was quite nice there as well is the reference to it seems to be a title that's inherited. There's your one, isn't it?
Now, here's the
first
moment,
ever direct reference to regeneration.
But the first moment of disappointment as an old Doctor Who fan, not only because these aren't particularly well photoshopped, but the disappointment, particularly in what's coming up next, that they aren't other Doctors.
Well, that's why I quite appreciate the reference there where he says it seems to be a title inherited. That's your one, isn't it?
Yes.
So, like, this is maybe the most recent one he's found stuff
It's
on.
a very conscious decision, isn't it, here? Particularly this. That could be Paul McGann unbelievably easily because he would fit so well into that costume-wise. But for clarity rather than continuity, he's gone for the Doctor now.
No,
Otherwise, it would make no sense if
I
that
don't
were
mind it
Peter Davison.
I don't mind it in hindsight. Can I kiss Peter Davison? I don't mind it in hindsight.
Always kiss Peter Davison.
Yay! I don't mind it in hindsight because you sort of get the sense that once he regenerated or once he came out of the Time War, or what, obviously at this point we sort of alluded that he was the one involved in the Time War, whatever, and he came out and he was like, oh god, what have I done? Oh god! What have I done? I like the idea that he just kept going. He just was like, I'm going here. Oh, let's have a look at that. Let's explore this. So I understand why there's lots of the Ninth Doctor everywhere, despite him being early in his regeneration, which is why I like the whole, could have been worse, shim about the ears, because he's not stopped to look in a mirror yet. He's kept moving.
It's a bit like, I suppose it's a bit like, in Waters of Mars, kind of, after that, where he sort of runs... Well, he doesn't really run away, but
he
he's
delays
kind of...
fate in that.
He's running away from fate, exactly.
Yeah. Whereas in this, he's running away from his past.
But I would also say, in a very clever way,
yes,
that he's also running away from his future.
Oh, yes!
Because he's kind of running away from Rose, and that's why he doesn't want anything to do with her, because he knows that she is...
The cycle will begin again.
It's all going to start again. He's going to get close to someone, etc., etc. I wonder if they ever sold that house.
No, that man still lives there to this day, taking the bins out in a sinister manner.
He's not an Auton, that man, because the bin's the Auton.
No, I know that, but why would they put it out there? They put it there because they knew she would know about the Doctor. That's why it grabs Mickey.
So you think that guy is an Auton?
Well, we saw them in later series.
I think
we saw how realistic they could look. The policeman back in Terror of the Autons, we saw how realistic they can look.
Terrifying policeman.
Mr. Policeman.
This was a funny moment. This is one that I know Blog to Who, Cameron, mentioned in his article for Metro as one of those, one of those no one liked it kind of moments, or not no one liked it, but the burping bin was a bit cringe, and I cringed. I didn't like it.
Yeah.
It was a bit. I think it was that thing of as an adult you cringe, but
bit of green screen there.
Oh yeah. God, it doesn't look good, does it?
To be fair, we're watching
Now,
this on a HD monitor, which is upscaling a little bit, so we can.
And
see...
it wasn't. This was. I mean, Doctor Who, of course, was not made in HD till Planet of the Dead, I think.
Yes, that was the first one that was deliberately done with like special cams and whatnot.
It's weird when you watch the TV movie and it's still in 4:3. That always gets me.
Yes.
That's so weird.
Yes. Now, Who is Doctor Who was a website. This
Was
was at the time there was viral marketing occurring. You could visit Clive's website, and I can't remember. You could, and I can't remember if there were clues from
What
it.
is it? Does it still exist?
Back in the day, I've got my laptop. I'm gonna check it out.
While you're doing that, I'm going to point out how I sort of both liked him as the Auton, but at the same time I could not believe she didn't notice that he looked like that.
Well, good point.
He looks so like a Lego man. Oh wow!
Who is Doctor Who doesn't exist in the way it used to, because if I remember correctly, in series 2, Mickey, no, series 1, midway through series 1, in the fictional world of a website that actually exists, Mickey took it over.
That's right.
While he was doing his research on the Doctor, which he then mentions in Aliens in London World War
I
III.
think it's actually in Christmas Invasion, doesn't he do that? Maybe?
I don't think it's Mickey. I think someone else takes it out shortly after that, and I think it's alluded to it may be one of Linda who do it later on.
Yes,
which is quite nice. Let's see if we can get the original article. Have you seen this man?
There it is, Contact Clive. Go to whoisdoctorwho.co.uk and you can see it.
Just a very quick... Oh, this is where we are. Oh, yeah.
No, I'm saying to
the
invisible people.
Hello, people. We're looking at the contact now. What's quite nice about this is people are discussing stuff. Mrs. Smith. I have no idea about the young man in the picture, but I do recall meeting an older white-haired gentleman back in 1963 who called himself the Doctor. So there's all this...
Wow.
I won't read it all now. It's something to explore in your own time, but go to whoisdoctorwho.co.uk.
There's a reference to the Queen Mother, though.
Sarah Jane Smith leaves a comment. Like, Arthur Dent leaves a comment.
And...
there's quite
do you know what, as well? You know, the other thing that... Again, this is all about remembering...
Marty McFly leaves
It's
a comment.
all about remembering... You know, imagine... We had no idea Sarah Jane was coming. This is all before any of that stuff. The thought of Sarah Jane Smith coming back, no one would have imagined it. Or they would have imagined it and done it in the first episode and it would have been terrible.
And yeah, it would have been too much too soon. I'm getting distracted by this. I need to
yeah,
close
you're a
the
little...
window.
Because we just found out that exists. It's quite exciting. There's a
So,
shot.
yeah.
There's all the artwork and everything and that looks not very good. The artwork's good,
but it's lovely that this still exists. I think that's excellent.
And again, there's that moment. Did we talk about that the other day where the man screams?
Yes,
Not the woman,
We were
the
chatting
man.
about this a while ago.
And I wonder
actually,
if that was, and we have the book somewhere, but I don't know where I put it. I
the
wonder if that
script-
was
the script book to hand.
specifically scripted.
I will search that up while you tell everybody about the body horror aspect of this, because the Auton episodes are pretty damn scary prior to this. Like they are.
Yeah, but
freaky.
the thing is as well, there aren't that many. There are only 2.
But there was a proposed third for the sixth Doctor
yes.
season.
But in terms of Autons, it's a very obscure, but actually very
Iconic.
logical thing to come back.
They're very iconic though, because they did leave an impression on people. And also, notice this is the first.
Well, I don't know if they did.
Well, this is the first episode of this era. Prior to this, the only other thing that could be considered an era was it coming out of black and white and into colour television. And the first enemies in the first one shot on film were the Autons. So it's. I think it was a conscious choice to make the Autons the non-focus of this episode, but enough of a threat that classic fans get it, and young fans get the concept. And this is beautiful. The reaction is amazing, and not revealing it as well.
Yeah,
not revealing it yet.
Teasing
so that people who've never seen it don't know what's happened
because
yet.
I think I'm pretty sure the Radio Times did a double-page spread showing you what it looked like, but you had still not seen it on film, and we had already had the TV movie with the most amazing sized set, but this one felt more logical. And look how I don't think it ever looked quite so beautiful again, actually. And I'm just sort of taking it in because and that shot's amazing. And yeah, all right, we'd had the TV movie, but it still blows me away that console room, and I don't think it ever looked as good.
The lighting and everything. It's just the reveal. It's
one thing I'll say about I know Russell Davies talked about it, it's like DOPs are very, very important people on things like this, and people who do colouring and the colourists, because this if you saw this what it looked like when it was shot, it was probably the colours were a lot more muted, and you know they brought out the colours. The DOPs work with lighting people to bring out certain colours, and it's amazing. It looks like Russell Davies said, it looks like nothing else on television at this point, or any point. I think this is beautiful.
A nice little moment of non-human thought here as well, because he's just realised that, I didn't know if they've killed the original. I hadn't thought of that. Sort of a moment to shake you out of, no, he's not human, and he has to just clarify. Well, I'm alien. Is that all right? She goes,
it's very Pyramids of Mars.
Yes,
you're acting as if you're not human.
Human.
That was my impression of both Sarah Jane and Tom Baker.
That's my impression of William Shatner. Your mum.
And here we go, the first takeoff as well. And
just to clarify as well, by the way, in the script it says Mickey's head. Don't think that's going to stop me. Cut to middle-aged couple. The man screams.
Yeah, it's Russell T Davies, man. I can imagine he would have written that and gone, no, the man screams, and chuckled and said marvellous.
Marvellous.
Probably clapped.
and then had a biscuit.
I
And
probably
then-
went to Tesco's. He likes going to Tesco's.
He does. If you read the writer's tale, he does enjoy Tesco's.
And if you read the writer's tale, I mentioned in the writer's tale.
You are.
As well.
You are. They discuss the cactus.
Yes, I used to produce Ed and Oucher being a cactus, and when I met Benjamin Cook
A
somewhere,
puppet cactus, not just a cactus.
no, actually, I met Benjamin Cook somewhere, and I said the book is great. It's one of the best books I've ever read, which it is, and you should read it because it's amazing. And
I've got both editions. How sad is that?
He said, "Oh well, you're another person who said we should do another one," and he mentions me, but not by name, but by job.
I met the producer who
Produces
the cactus.
the cactus, talking cactus,
Which is called Oucho.
I think that lends
look
credibility
at
to me being here, Chris.
Look at it does. See, you're woven through time.
Do you know
and
what's
fabric. You're like
interesting?
Wilf. We keep meeting Guy.
I will knock 4 times.
Who are you? I'm Wilfred Mott.
What is interesting about this, and we were talking about this earlier, you know, Doctor Who mythology now is very complicated. There's a lot. I mean, the regeneration thing alone is quite complicated now. This series has such simplicity, cleanness. It's not bogged down in its own mythology. It's very simple.
It's self-contained. I mean, it's the only series of Doctor Who that you could just watch beginning to end.
And it feels like...
End on the cliffhanger that it ends on and still just be like, I'm satisfied with that. That is one story. And then it ends in a way that goes, ooh, more tales could come.
But there's something...
It's got a bullet point.
The reason I mention it here is because there's something about this sequence that is just... I think it's the way it's shot, where it is, the fact it's got the eye in it. The eye in Doctor Who. Can you imagine Sylvester McCoy standing outside that going, let's go and meet the Happiness Patrol? You know, it just... Big Ben. When have you ever seen Big Ben in Doctor Who? For years. It just felt like the show was not about
that shot. Apparently
continuity.
That was a nightmare to get the buses.
Yes.
The show is about telling
all those people on
stories
that
and
bus.
using the world that already exists. It was not about...
It was our world, not his world. Which Doctor Who, I mean, you know, I love it in many of its forms, but it did become about the Doctor and that weird, complicated existence and stories and stuff. This is like it's had a good old bath.
Speaking of a good old bath, the breast implants line is refreshingly different
Oh,
as
I
well.
forgot.
That's quite nice. I've got to admit, having lived in London, the geography of all this is very disorienting.
It's all a little bit nonsense.
Skew-if, yeah.
But who cares?
It services the story beautifully, and the way it's set out. Obviously, they want to show off, look, we are in London, this is happening. And also the conversation they had outside the TARDIS, and this bit here, I believe, these were the first sort of big dialogue scenes Chris and Billy shot together. Prior to this, it was a lot of action shots, a lot of running alongside the buses and everything, but this was like the first meaty dialogue they got to do. I think this probably was the stuff they were doing the nights prior, like walking through corridors and sneaking about a bit. Already they look like a TARDIS team. And
that moment, I mean, we kind of missed it because we were talking about it, but that moment where they hold hands, you know, again, it's all about plot points in terms of emotion and the Doctor growing. He actually has a journey in this episode that is, when you deconstruct it, is very, you can see it, and that's one of those emotional moments of, do you know what, I'm back. It's like I've grabbed your hand, we're going on an adventure. It's so exciting. This was a bit nonsense, but then when you look back, you go, okay, now I get it. I know what it means, this shadow proclamation. Because at the time you're like, what do you mean this? What is
again,
this?
that's something that Russell and the writers of this first series, and the second series as well, arguably so,
That's
are very
beautiful.
good at painting pictures with nonsense.
Russell Davies is an expert in saying things like the Medusa Cascade, the jaws of the Nightmare Child,
The lupine wavelength hemiveriform.
Is that a thing? What's that
The
for?
king, like, was it the king of nowhere in his army of never was? I'm getting it
his
wrong.
army
but,
of
like,
never, it's like the never was or whatever.
And then just names: Cassandra,
But he
Lady
loves that.
Cassandra
He
O'Brien.
admits-
Delta 17, Raxacorico, Phalopatorius, the mighty Jagrafess of the Holy Hydrogesic Maxarodenfo. I've watched this series too much.
He's bloody clever though, isn't he, old Russell?
But it's great because it fills things out. Also, just a random note to point out: this is the debut performance of Nick Briggs.
Nicholas Briggs.
Nick Briggs, the voice of the Daleks and Cybermen, the Judoon.
Pretty much every monster.
This is him making sounds as what I used to think of as the face of Goldar from Mighty Morphin Power Rangers in a bucket.
I have to say, I was disappointed when I
like
watched this. I just thought this monster was a bit...
But also, this is because it's another thing to compare to the previous one, because this isn't what the nestings looked like before.
No,
as
it
well.
wasn't so much that. I just thought it wasn't. It was just a blob. It wasn't. There was no kind of design to it. It didn't excite me. I'm just being picky. I loved it, but you know what I mean. I just thought it's just a bunch of blob.
But also a fun thing to note as well. Notice how he's the only one who's understanding it. Rose and Mickey aren't. They're just hearing the screams and everything. In the next episode, Rose is understanding the aliens, and that's the discussion about the TARDIS getting in your head.
Oh yes, I never noticed that.
It's almost like she's not a member yet of the crew. She's not a passenger of the TARDIS.
She's not being accepted by the TARDIS.
So it's not quite happening. But imagine if she'd have been with him for like the days leading up to this moment, helping his investigation.
God, you're right.
She would have heard the nesting.
But again, you know, it's one of those things you appreciate in retrospect, and Russell would have known when he wrote it. That's so clever. Now, apparently,
I think the set piece is really impressive.
This whole design is, you know, it's a very simple thing, but again, it's what the DOP can bring to your project. It's what lighting. It's what colorists bring. It's taking something that is as simple as that environment that probably looks quite boring and making it look amazing. Oh, we love her. She's great.
Love Camille.
We also forgot to mention Phil Collinson, who's a genius and brilliant and amazing. If I had his career, I'd be very happy.
If I had his taste in shirts, I'd be very happy. He's a very well-dressed man.
He's got a very good taste in many ways, that man.
Now, this is a gorgeous shot again. It's sort of saying, hello, welcome to... It's something which the TV movie attempted to do as well. It's sort of like, look, here's San Francisco, isn't it, the TV movie?
Yeah.
It's like, look, here's San Francisco and lightning and everything.
But you never really were that convinced.
But also, as Britons, we weren't fussed. I love the fact they moved before...
Someone was quite critical about that, but we won't go into that. It's boring.
Fair enough. Now, just so people know, the Autons freaked me out because I lived in Ealing for a time. Like, they freaked me out when I first saw the story, but I lived in Ealing for a time. And
yes, and I used to live in Ealing. I know exactly what you're about to say.
Yeah, shortly after I moved in, I'd be walking to the tube stop to go to work.
Look at that.
And I would have this weird feeling every time I walked past the window of Marks and Spencer's, and I didn't quite know what it was until about a week into living there, I realised it was the window that they break out of in Spearhead.
Did I tell you that was that?
No, I figured it out because I think I said to you, I think I'm living
near
the Autons. And the worst part was, at the time, I don't know what it's like now, but at the time, there were mannequins with the clothes display in the window.
It is, because if you go to Ealing, it's the Marks and Spencer's in Ealing by the roundabout.
Yeah,
which is the original.
Across from the church and stuff, which you do see in the shots in Spearhead.
And what's good about this, of course, bringing referring that, is the fact that this was the first time we actually saw the Autons literally break the glass. We didn't ever see that.
Yeah, we heard it and we saw them walking.
Because they couldn't afford it. Yeah.
Also, the death count in this, like, I don't know if many of the deaths are on screen, but there is a lot of shots being fired here. People are getting hurt.
Yeah. I was a little bit... I mean, it's early days for these people that, filming this, and they'd never made this sort of show before. I remember being a bit disappointed by it in terms of direction. It didn't feel that exciting.
It's teasing, I suppose, isn't
but
it?
this is trying to figure out...
They're trying to figure out
how to make the show, really.
Yeah.
But, it was...
Child Autons, man, that's horrifying. And then you see the brides in the background, you just know that they're going to... Oh, dude.
And the thing as well, the fact that she's in danger, you've never seen that before in Doctor Who. You've never seen a member of their that I can think of, a member of their family threatened in a kind of B plot. Like, these two things are intercutting. Everything's happening to that character who we don't really know as a main character.
But what we've seen of her so far, we quite like her.
We've already bought into her.
We're invested in her, so we see her in danger, and it's tense. Like, it's tense seeing Jackie approached.
If you read a screenwriting book, this is the end of Act 2 where it all goes wrong. This is the moment. And now this throws you into Act 3.
Oh, Billy!
Thank you, Robert McKee, for that.
Billy, if you're listening, which you never will do, just wow.
And also, I mean, this is Buffy, isn't it? This bit here.
Yes,
but also
this is the moment in the bronze. She says, "I got the bronze." This is the moment in the bronze at the end of The Harvest, Part 2 of the first Buffy story.
Yes,
swinging in to save the day at the stage and everything.
And I think as well that Chris Eccleston gets a lot of stick because he didn't do the 50th. People don't know what goes on. People don't know what happens.
No one really knows.
It's not their business to. He's not He's not there to service us. I remember Harry Enfield saying, because Harry Enfield used to be in Men Behaving Badly, the first series.
Yeah.
and he said that show would never got made without me, and would not have continued with me. And it always reminds me of Chris Eccleston, because people just owe him a huge debt, because this man sold this series as a serious, proper project.
Yeah.
In ways that we'll never understand, Chris.
Because we have time in hands.
Because, of course, like a year before this, it was people like Paul Daniels that were talked about as being the next Doctor.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Quite seriously, because it was considered light entertainment.
There was not too much speculation about who the Doctor was going to be for long, was there, when the series was announced? If I recall, because it was quite.
Oh God, there
in it
was.
that they said Chris Eccleston.
Oh no, I think maybe you're right. Actually.
I think it was maybe a couple of weeks where
but
people were like, "Oh, I wonder who it'll be."
Do you remember when they announced it in the papers? And I think it was the Daily Express announced Bill Nighy was the Doctor.
Yeah, I
because they
remember
announced
in the early
it
days
before the actual announcement.
Hmm.
And Bill Nighy was the Doctor in the Daily Express, I think it was. And I remember laughing, thinking how ridiculous. Not that, not Bill Nighy being Doctor is ridiculous, but they're ridiculous that they published that and it was blatantly untrue.
I think this is the best the Autons have looked in sort of.
I think they look better in Love and
stories.
Monsters.
Oh, for the sequence
when
they reshot
that.
to add in, yeah.
But up to this point, absolutely.
Which Barney Harwood's in. He's in 2 sequences in Love and Monsters.
Yes, and can I just say quickly that while this was going out, I was at CBBC. I was producing Saturday Mornings with Anne and Barney.
I'm fine. Barney
I'd stuck in the Blue Peter studio to watch Chris Eccleston, and there was still the belief that Doctor Who would not work. I was one of the lone voices going, "This is going to be great." People didn't significantly embrace it for quite a while, and I started to put Bad Wolf references in. We had the TARDIS in on Saturday mornings, but there wasn't a sense that this show, there wasn't the confidence that it was going to be a big thing until about 3 or 4 weeks in. And then the whole world changed, Chris.
The entire world, God. Oh, look at Mickey.
Little Mickey. I'm kind of into this now.
Yeah, I'm just being absorbed into, especially Eccleston and
Eccleston
Piper.
Almost weirdly green screen into the TARDIS. It doesn't look, again, HD is does not do you many favours.
No. I'd be interested to watch this on the Blu-ray. If anyone's got the Blu-ray version of this, who forked out for the massive Blu-ray box set of the first 7 series, do let me know how Series 1 looks in Blu-ray format.
That shot, of course, was one of the very first shots in the promos. It's almost time, but not yet. Do you remember?
I remember that, yeah.
About January. It's on YouTube as well, and on the DVD.
There's a lot of countdowns in the first couple of years as well, like to the finale.
Yeah, there was a great
sort of the
countdown.
TV ad break between like the end of the news or what have you and parting of the ways. They kept showing the hour leading up, but they kept showing these stings. It was like counting down to like 1 minute to go.
And there was a whole 30-second countdown.
Well, there was the 30-second one, wasn't there, for parting the ways? But like with this as well, even in the documentary 2 hours before, there was a screen that kept saying
that had
like
been on
invasion
the website.
begins in.
And that had been on the BBC website, counting down to 7 o'clock. And
I love that. How smug the Doctor is in that moment. He's like, "Oh, by the way, you're going to want to come with me after I tell you this bit." Like he just knows.
Because of course the audience wouldn't have known that. They didn't know it travelled in time at that point.
Yeah.
Unless you knew Doctor Who. And there it goes. And I remember thinking,
"Oh man,
and I thought, what is this? Why is there a big next time? That doesn't look right." But I kind of was like, I'm the kind of person who analyses font choices and doesn't like them.
But it makes sense for this because for the newcomers, they're saying, "We're not joking.
Yeah,
we're going to take you everywhere."
And if you don't buy into the difficult second album, you might as well not bother. And look at old Bo and all that face. Malarkey.
Slightly smaller face.
This really was make or break, this one, wasn't it? Because Rose was a masterpiece, and this was Doctor Who as we would have written it ourselves if it was an episode 1. And not very well. God, that went so quickly.
It did. This episode, like you said earlier on, it's just spot on. Yeah. Like it is the perfect first episode to grab you by the gonads and drag you along for the ride.
And look at all these beautiful people that never get mentioned, and hooray for all of them. Clive Van Beers, great work, colourist, man.
take a moment to like just absorb those names, ladies and gents.
Andy
because
Pryor, who's still with the show.
Andy Pryor does fantastic work. Because whatever you feel about characters and whatnot with Doctor Who, I think everybody's spot on cast. Like with some of your leads and your villains, your mustache twirling villains always are never just straightforward mustache twirling villains. There's always a lot more going on with the choice, and
of course back in the are we still talking? Even though
absolutely.
Back in the...
Everybody, your episode should be finished by now, but the fun's not going to stop for a few more minutes.
The fun will never end.
The fun we're not going away.
But the thing is, as well, like, this was, you compare... Ow. Sorry. Oh, yeah, we don't need the headphones anymore.
I caught your headphone.
Doctor Who, the original classic Who, as people call it, didn't have casting directors. Directors would cast.
Mm.
And suddenly it upped its game in terms of being a production to have a separate casting director whose entire job was to cast it and cast it brilliantly.
Mm.
But I do think that although that's great... amazing cast that they had in the original series most of the time anyway.
Yeah. Well, that's because again, the serial format meant that you would sort of stay with supporting characters and one-off characters for 4 or 5 weeks at a time. So they had to be compelling. Whereas with this one, again, tremendous job of the actors involved. Like looking at the Next Time trailer, I love the steward in the second episode.
Yeah.
And get genuinely miffed when, spoiler alert, he gets killed off. It's like, oh, damn
And
it.
also an interesting choice because... he's got a blue face, isn't he? That guy, and that's the brilliant danger of Russell T Davies, that he obviously thought, you know what, if we're going to do,
he wrote that episode while his legs were on fire.
On the moon.
On the moon.
He obviously thought, you know what, if I'm going to write a monster-led episode, he's going to have a blue face, or someone thought that, and in one of their tone meetings, which is always very exciting. Name for a meeting.
Quite literally when it comes to a blue face. It's a tone meeting.
But just to take us back for a sec, what did you think when episode 1 had gone out? Where were you now at this point thinking? Because I kind of know where I was with it.
Child me was delighted. I say child me, I was 14. Child me was delighted because I really enjoyed the Doctor. Even as a 14-year-old, I was a bit sceptical because he didn't look sort of like the Doctors I knew and had come to love by reading the books and watching the DVDs and the videos. But I really liked him. I felt he was the Doctor.
Oh, I've just remembered I've got a cup of tea. Oh, no, I drank it.
Hey!
Sorry.
It's alright.
That's a totally irrelevant
drink update for everybody. I felt he was the Doctor, and I got that, and I enjoyed him. I really liked Rose, and I was looking forward to seeing what she was going to think, what she would say about going, into the future. And I love the fact that, because again, I was a Buffy fan, and the older I've got, the more I've appreciated different things in Buffy that I didn't spot as a teenager. But I was a big fan of Monster of the Week. And what better Monster of the Week for me than my favourite Doctor Who monsters, to show up. So even though they're obviously kind of just set dressing for the story, they're there to service the plot that's not the real story. Like, the real story is Rose and the Doctor, but the Autons obviously are the structure of the thing. I was still excited to see them and really delighted that they were the ones that we got to, witness first. And again, it was, like I said before, I think it was a very conscious choice, because a lot of the public, the older public, the mums and dads, and sort of the 20-somethings and whatnot who were watching it,
like me,
exactly, would be aware of the Autons, or remember the Autons, or heard about the Autons. So to them, there's that extra level of excitement, and it's a way of making sure that usually forgotten first monster of a show that has like a monster baddie in it isn't really forgotten, because it's just like, oh god, it's them, brilliant, really cool to see them, and they just service it nicely. And I was just delighted, and I remember just being really pleased. I didn't like the Auton voiced by Graham Norton 5 minutes in, but apart from that, yeah. So where were you at this point? You'd been alone in your flat,
alone,
you'd locked out the rest of the world, so you could concentrate on watching this first ep.
It's a bit like when I first walked into this room, Chris, which is a bit difficult for a lot of people at home to understand.
We're in a cave. What are you on about?
Chris's room is absolutely, literally rammed. You've got to put a picture up on Twitter or Tumblr or something of this room. It's full of stuff, and it's overwhelming. And how I felt, I watched that first episode and I was nervous, I was having anxiety attacks for the show because I wanted the show to be great. And I didn't like the choice of font, as I said, because I was nitpicking because I wanted it to be great and no one to criticise it because, my God, pretty much all of my life, you mentioned to someone that you liked Doctor Who and they would laugh, call you a nerd. It was not good.
The only thing that ever really got away with being a Doctor Who fan and not being sort of dissed for it was The Simpsons, which used to make lovely references to
But again, in that kind of niche, I don't know, it was really tough being a fan, really hard, because you are constantly defending it. And then it came back and as anyone who worked on it, I'm sure felt the same. I didn't work on it, but I was just worried. I was nervous and worried that it was going to not be loved. And I remember a couple of friends were like, and I was like, I didn't really have an alien invasion story that I thought was that complicated. And it would have been a 45-minute episode, a self-contained, which was quite a shock. And I didn't appreciate at the time, perhaps, the Rose Doctor emotional journey that we were about to go on. I didn't. And now looking back on it, I love it and think it's amazing. At the time, I just was so unsure where we were going. It was an unknown world.
Which in itself, though, is kind of exciting, really.
Yeah, I think and also like you knew the Daleks were going to come back, or a Dalek at this point. And you knew some of the names of the writers, and you knew Mark Gatiss was doing one, and you were like, okay, cool.
Paul Cornell, if you're familiar with like the sort of the New Virgin Adventures and stuff,
yeah,
you were like, oh right. Okay.
And you knew, I've completely forgotten the guy's name who wrote Dalek.
Rob Shearman.
Rob Shearman, thank you. You knew.
No, thank you.
Big Finish. Thank Rob.
Thank Rob, indeed.
You knew Big Finish. You knew Jubilee. Gary Ross doing amazing work with great stuff like Jubilee and stuff, and you knew there was going to be good stuff, but I worried. It's stupid, isn't it, how much you love this show and worry about it. You worry that you're going to appreciate it and then there's never going to be any more of it because it was not going to be successful.
But luckily it wasn't the end of the world.
Yay!
Next week, however, next week we're going to be taking a look at The End of the World, the second episode in Series 1, which is weird when you think about it.
Yeah.
Of Doctor Who.
Series 1 / 20
something.
27.
Let's
Depends what you class the TV movie as, really.
Yeah, it's the TV movie's sort of a special, really, isn't it? But
Yeah.
maybe one day we'll look back at the TV movie and do like a retrospective.
Can we do it now? I'll do it now.
No.
Oh.
So, I would like to thank you, Guy, for joining me for Rose.
Thank you. I haven't even talked about Andrew Hayden Smith and how I worked with him and produced him, and he went into the Cybermen story
and kick Cybermen bum.
Because I said to him, "You've got to go and be in Doctor Who. Russell, I'm sure, loves you," and he was like, "No, he won't." And then 2 weeks later, he said, "Okay, I'm going to apply," and it happened. Haven't talked about that. Haven't talked about loads of stuff. I haven't talked about you and Karen Gillan in The Cage, which I produced him in doing that.
Well, nil you fret. If you enjoyed this, guys, you want to hear a little bit more from me and Guy.
We're going to do more.
Oh, we are. You know what we're doing between now and the end of the world next week. We are going to be popping up an extra sneaky little app called After Party. So
yes, with a live link up.
Make sure to join us for that. With a live link up with One Direction, or at least
4 of them. Breaking news! It literally happened a few hours ago
before our recording. Oh dear. Oh dear.
They might be 5 again by the time this goes out.
Probably.
Unlikely by tomorrow.
Unlikely. Not Robbie Williams will join them and fill the gap in. Right, doesn't make any sense. So, from Guy and me, we'll see you again soon. Much. Do please check out Fantastic S1 on Twitter. Tweet along every Saturday during the 10th anniversary.
Yes.
And of course, please, we implore you to check out the Two-ish Doctors.
Yeah, do, because you'll love it. And if you don't love it, at least we bothered to do it.
Yeah, so take that.
Thanks. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much,
Thanks,
Guy.
Chris.
Hey.
Good luck.
Hey. Oh, well. Oh. We're terrible at endings. Bye, everyone. See you next week.
Bye.